Gentlemen, I was expecting the audience to disappear, but thank God there's a few left. So, where do cyber attacks increase? Who's next? It's a good question, isn't it? I promise not to scare you too much. Why do cyber attacks increase, and why are they successful? And why are they causing chaos to financial institutions and countries themselves by crippling their mission-critical infrastructures? Cybersecurity is not something new. We've been struggling with this issue for 20 years now. Cybersecurity is just a trendy term that originated from the States 5 years ago. Call it computer security, IT security, information security. It's a well-known problem we've been struggling with for the last 20 years. This is where neural networks, machine learning, and artificial intelligence comes in. When I was doing my research at Imperial College in London back in '93, trying to design neural networks, that was wishful thinking. Now it's reality. It's here, and it can enable us to defend our organizations, as Elizabeth described from Dark Trace a couple of hours ago. So, in order for us to understand why this problem is happening, they told me there's a green button, I only see a red button. Got it. So in order for us to understand why this is happening, we need to understand the cyber threat landscape and the cyber threat actors. The first category are the well-known cyber criminals. They are out for personal gain, for financial gain. They are whole corporations these days, operating in the dark web. They are the organized crime. They even have job descriptions. They have the malware author, the inject writer, the exploit kit vendor, the money mules. They even recruit specific skills to develop customized backing trojans or customized malware to attack specific organizations. Who is polluting the environment? They are making a point. And the third one, which is probably the most well-funded, is cyber spies, cyber espionage. You don't need to go into war with another country these days. You can destroy the mission-critical infrastructure through a cyber attack. Look what the Americans did to the Iranians back in 2005 with the Stuxnet malware that crippled the nuclear program of the Iranians. So these are the basic three categories of cyber threat actors and their motives. Now, what have we seen the last 5 years in the cyber threat landscape? We have seen an exponential increase of the cyberbank heists against financial organizations by using banking trojans, ransomware, CO whaling. What is CO whaling? Business engineering, social engineering. A few years ago, the CEO of a huge Austrian aircraft manufacturer, spare parts aircraft manufacturer, was fooled into making a fraudulent transaction of 50 million euros because the email came from a very important business partner. And he convinced him, and he did the transaction. He lost his job. Swift heists. Everyone knows the Bangladesh heist a few years ago. $81 million lost. ATM jackpotting. These days, you don't need to do ATM scheming to steal money. You can remotely control the ATM by malware. Malware as a service. If you want to target a specific organization, you can develop malware, and you can buy it on the dark web for that specific organization. Here's a cybercrime price list on the dark web. Everything is available. You want to buy credit card information, debit card information, it's $10. You want to buy your own malware to attack someone, $25. And the list goes on. These are the top 10 banking trojans for 2019 and 2018. with probably the most well-known, the Zeus and the Dridex. The Dridex is the one that caused damage in Bangladesh Central Bank a couple of years ago. Now, the next is the famous Carbon hack, the biggest cyberbank heist in history, where $1 billion were lost across 30 countries, across 100 financial institutions. It all started back in 2013. How did it start? One day, an ATM in Kiev was spitting out cash. Some of the bystanders started collecting the cash, put it in their pockets. Some of them informed the bank's authorities and the bank's tellers. They called Kaspersky in, and they did an investigation. They realized that the whole network of the bank was confiscated, was compromised. The customized malware was planted months ago, and it was monitoring the keystrokes of the tellers and the back office administrators, thus gaining knowledge about the processes of the bank. This way, they achieved to steal millions of dollars through online banking systems, e-payment systems, by inflating account balances and controlling ATMs. Now, this cyberbank hack against banks is estimated to be about $1 billion because it went across 100 financial institutions. The next one, though, is accurate. It's a Bangladesh bank SWIFT cyber heist back in February 2016. This was ingenious. The Central Bank of Bangladesh lost $81 million out of $1 billion attempted. And they got lucky because the Federal Bank of New York that the transfers went through raised fraud alerts, and they blocked 30 transactions. 3 transactions went through to the Philippines and were laundered through money mules through casinos. And they also got lucky with 2 transactions that went through Sri Lanka, and the hackers misspelled the word foundation. Now, what I want to describe is not just the technology used, it's also the social engineering aspect. The whole scheme was ingenious. The whole thing took place Thursday late afternoon on the 6th of February, if I'm not wrong. And by the time they discovered it the next day, because the printer wouldn't print the messages, they realized that they had no access to the SWIFT Alliance server. It was completely compromised. By the time they regained access to the SWIFT Alliance server to investigate the problem, the Federal Bank of New York was weekend the next day, Saturday and Sunday. Then they realized at least we can reverse the Philippines transactions. 3 transactions were successful in the Philippines, $81 million. Well, guess what? On Monday morning when they called the Philippines banks, everything was closed. Why? Because it was Chinese New Year, and the Philippines was celebrating Chinese New Year. So the point I'm trying to make, it was an ingenious plan because they used a lot of social engineering as well. Now, technically wise, how did it all happen? They compromised the SWIFT Alliance server, they decrypted the configuration file, they evaded the validations of the Oracle database, they completely tampered the SWIFT messages that were printed out, and as a result, they could execute database transactions. It was very well planned and very well executed. Since then, SWIFT decided to bring the very tough cybersecurity control framework with the well-known 16 mandatory controls. Now, what can we do to prevent cyberbank heists? I've been in the industry for 24 years, focusing only on security for 20 continuous years. These are my conclusions. There's 3 main pillars. The number 1, we all need to restructure our perimeter network security architectures, which makes us most vulnerable. It's where all our internet-facing systems are hosted. Because at the end of the day, what makes hacking possible, ladies and gentlemen? What is the single element that makes hacking possible? Anyone? No, it's not. The single element that makes hacking possible, without which hacking wouldn't exist. No. The network, you are getting closer. The internet protocol, ladies and gentlemen. Without the internet protocol, there wouldn't be internet and there wouldn't be hacking. So unless you secure your TCP/IP network, you are destined to fail. Yes, there is a debate these days, should we be network-centric or data-centric? We should be both. But first, you should secure the network. Because unless you secure your network, no matter what you do on your data, they will still get to it. So we need to restructure our perimeter network security architectures and the internal network. We need to implement multi-layer security, security in depth, endpoint security. We need to segregate physically and logically our network layers. We need to implement state-of-the-art cybersecurity control systems. And this is where the theme of the day comes. We need to implement advanced endpoint threat detection, advanced endpoint threat prevention, network behavioral anomaly detection, user entity behavioral analytics. All these technologies work with neural networks, machine learning, artificial intelligence. So this is the future in cybersecurity. AI is the future. It's the only technology that can help us prevent the unknown threat, because the traditional signature-based cybersecurity control systems are not enough anymore. I'm not saying we should get rid of them. We should complement them with AI. Now, another critical pillar is the 24/7 security information event management, the security monitoring. If you invest all these millions of dollars in technology and you don't monitor on it 24/7 your network and your systems, you will fail again. And preferably these monitoring services should be outsourced to the global leaders that have global security operations centers across the world, spanning across the globe, because these guys, they have paramount threat intelligence, they have big data security analytics, and they have embedded AI and machine learning in their products. I worked as a senior lead enterprise cybersecurity consultant in London for BAE Systems, and I've seen global banks failing to build their own security operations center. Because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, our business is banking, is not cybersecurity. This is why this service should be outsourced to the global leaders, the experts. Now, this must be complemented, last but not least, because for me this is the most important part, with an enterprise information security framework. All organizations should have an information security management system with documented strategy, policies, procedures, technical standards, guidelines. Governance is of utmost importance. Information security is extremely complex and never-ending. Unless you address all domains of information security, you will fail. You need to address asset management, change management, risk management, awareness, physical security, the lot. And if you do that, you will have the desired outcome. People, processes, technology. They need to integrate and work together. We need all three of them. Now, this is the hacktivist threat landscape. These are the guys that promote a political agenda or a social change. We've seen the last decades nationalistic hacking, Middle East hacktivism, the anonymous targeting ISIS, terrorist propaganda. WikiLeaks is a form of cyber hacktivism. Media hacking is another example when you hack a television station or a newspaper to pass your message through. Cyber espionage, personal, economic, political, or military motives, countries against country. The USA crippled the Iranian nuclear program in 2005 with the infamous Stuxnet worm. One night in the Ukraine in 2015, the whole of the Ukraine went dark for a few hours. Why? Because the Russians managed to compromise the SCADA network of the electric authority. They didn't have to go into war. They just did a cyber attack. We've seen the malware of the Chinese against the Philippines, the Iranian DDoS attack against US banks, the Russians again against Ukrainian banks with customized malware, and the Indians against the Pakistanis with the cyber army group attack. These are just few examples. Now, the next slide shows the top data breaches of all time. These are huge data thefts with massive financial losses. Yahoo lost all their database. 3 billion accounts were lost. It happened 2013, 2014, and they disclosed it in 2017. At the moment they disclosed it, they were in negotiations with Verizon to be acquired. As a result, their share price dropped within a few weeks, $350 million in company value. That was a huge financial loss because they didn't protect their data properly. LinkedIn 2012, poor password encryption. Adobe 2013, poor password encryption. Millions of records lost. These are huge names. eBay, the same. They didn't exercise due diligence, due care. JP Morgan, a huge bank. They didn't implement two-factor authentication, basic security control. Sony PlayStation, they lost 77 million accounts and 171 million losses in dollars. And next is probably the most important and the most well-known data breach of all times that happened in 2017, Equifax, the huge credit bureau agency in the States. They lost 148 million records of US citizens. I think that's 50% of the US citizens, with names, surnames, social insurance numbers, addresses, even driving license numbers. The CEO, the CIO, and the CSO were fired. The vulnerability was discovered in March on a public-facing Apache web server. It was compromised in May. They detected in July, and they went public in September. When they asked them why, they said it's labor intensive. No, there is no excuse. If there's a critical vulnerability on a mission critical system on the internet, you need to patch, no matter how labor intensive it is. The result was catastrophic. These are the key attack types in 2019 and the last few years as well. The well-known ransomware, DDoS, malicious insiders, phishing, vulnerability exploits. It never changes. It's all the same. Sometimes I say to my peers, the cyber criminals are laughing at us. They are using the same old techniques. Now, WannaCry, back in 2017, when I came in Bahrain, and my shipment from London was delayed for several weeks because the WannaCry crippled TNT, the shipping company. Now, this is another example of lack of due care and due diligence. WannaCry exploited the well-known server message block in Windows. The vulnerability came out in March. Microsoft issued the patch. Half of the internet was not patched, and the damage happened. 150 countries, 100,000 organizations, 200,000 infected computers. Here's the reason why. The 2018 data breach investigations report by Verizon, 90% of the data breaches were achieved using a familiar list of 9 attack vectors. SQL injection, cross-site scripting, DDoS attacks. It's all the same. It's happening again. Why is this happening? There are several reasons. The number one reason is to this day, organizations fail to understand the cybersecurity risk exposure. Organizations do not have solid risk management frameworks, and they don't present it correctly to the executive management and the board. There's lack of awareness, both within our users and all the layers of the organization. Lack of due diligence and due care. People don't do what they have to do. Although they know the vulnerabilities, they don't mitigate the risk. The CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, needs to be empowered. The days are long gone that the CISO was reporting to the head of IT or the CIO. The CISO is an independent entity. The CISO is critical for the organization. The CISO should either report to the CRO or the CEO himself or to the board risk committee directly. Cybersecurity these days, especially for financial organizations, can either make you or break you. So the information security should be placed up there. Lack of IT security resources. The CISO relies on IT and IT security to implement the security controls. Usually these guys are busy with production and operational reasons. And lack of patch management. We need to patch. We need to mitigate the vulnerabilities. And the conclusion of the day is we need to go back to the basics. We need to exercise basic cybersecurity hygiene before we move to artificial intelligence. We need to do the basics first and then move to AI. And I want to tell you a little story. When I was in London as a cybersecurity consultant, I did a risk assessment for a global insurance organization spanning from the UK to the USA. These guys transformed overnight from having, in 2016, a static web page to having multiple online financial transaction channels for their pension payments, for liquidization of the pensions, and so on. I did the risk assessment. I realized one of the most critical controls you should have for online financial transaction is the web application firewall. I said to them, why don't you have one? They said to me, well, we are planning to have one next year. This is why cyber attacks take place, and this is why they are successful. Because unless you implement basic security controls before you go live, it's like an accident waiting to happen. Thank you very much for listening to me. If you have any questions, please go ahead.
So you are for 20 years in the business now. When do you see a tipping point that we as people cannot follow this anymore? That we as people, as security managers like you, cannot follow anymore what the AI algorithms can do, especially in the machine learning. And I'm referring to RA12 that has been published last week. That is a platform that develops algorithms. So there is now AI that develops AI. So, and if that will be part of the cybersecurity scene, where do you see the tipping point that we as human beings are not able to follow what is going on in the cybersecurity?
My expert opinion is that this day and age, hackers do not use AI. They do not need to use AI, as I explained throughout my presentation. They are exploiting well-known vulnerabilities. They are laughing at us. Now, developing AI is not something easy. There's a lot of confusion about AI. It's not that easy for hackers to use AI. First of all, to implement AI, you need to develop neural networks with very complex mathematical algorithms. Well, once you develop the neural network, you implement machine learning. Once you implement machine learning, you can start developing artificial intelligence. So I do not agree that hackers use AI. It's very, very complex and difficult to build AI. Our Darktrace, the global leaders that are out there, they've been cooperating with Cambridge University in England for 10 years now to build those complex mathematical algorithms to build the neural network and the machine learning. So I don't think this is happening. Like I said, I mean, they're just exploiting well-known vulnerabilities. This is my opinion.
Do you know Mark Goodman?
No, I don't.
Please read Mark Goodman.
I will. We can take it offline later.
Thank you for the nice presentation. It was amazing.
Thank you.
I'm the CTO of Carrefour, and we are using AI and look forward to use AI in our application. One of the interesting things which comes to the mind is when you think of AI from security perspective, there's a lot of research which is happening on generative adversarial networks and reinforcement learning. wherein you could actually have a particular AI algorithm, which is a kind of algorithm running as a security shield around your system in a proactive way and also in a reactive way. However, using the same technique, you can actually break that algorithm and then penetrate that same AI capabilities and destroy that. What are your thoughts about it?
It's true, it will happen at some stage. Hackers will use machine learning and AI to counterattack us back, to break our defenses. But I don't think it's happening at the moment. Like one of the gentlemen said during his presentations, I mean, is it a blessing or is it a curse? At the moment in cybersecurity, it's a blessing. If it will become a curse, I don't know yet. But you're absolutely right.